Hi Carolyn, thanks for agreeing to have a chat with me today.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that you have experienced a fairly traumatic time and that you've left an abusive relationship, and that today you're comfortable to have a bit of a chat with me about some of your experiences. I really thank you for taking the time to do that. Explain to me that very commonly in your relationship with your ex-partner that you felt silenced, and that you didn't have a voice. That's really interesting to me. It's a phrase that I've often heard used from other women who have also experienced trauma in their past relationships. Are you comfortable telling me a little bit more about what not having a voice and being silenced looked like and felt like?
Well, it kind of sort of the meaning of that, being silent or kind of changed, because when I first started counselling, which I didn't really want to do, but I felt kind of guilty about that because it was like I wasn't really doing anything. And she asked me a lot about, well, what did that actually mean? What did I do when I was silent? And it really had me thinking, well, actually, I was being silent because beforehand I used to react, and that used to get me worse than nowhere. And he'd get really wound up. And so then I actually decided it was like a choice to be silent because I could keep the peace and the kids would be safer. And I was sort of safer. I didn't get the same consequences. So I was actually doing something by being silent. It wasn't nothing, which I think, so often women think that it is nothing, but it isn't actually. You're doing a lot to stay silent.
You've come to realise that that was actually a choice, and a very brave choice that you made.
Absolutely, and because you're saying a lot to yourself in your head, you certainly are. It's not that you're not talking to yourself or just reminding yourself why this is important, or so it's not being pathetic and just shutting up or anything. You're actually doing it for a good reason. And it didn't mean it was all good in the end, but it was much better usually.
Can you talk me through what that sense of safety looks like for you now, and what your journey's been like that, and how counselling has supported you to get to that point?
I think what stops a lot of women from going to counselling is just feeling so ashamed. And so the first sort of counselling I got was on the phone, where I could be anonymous, and I was sort of checking out the counsellor, and didn't really know what to expect, but she firstly asked me about if I felt safe talking, which surprised me, and made sure that I knew about making just those physical things, about my phone wasn't going to be tapped and all that sort of stuff. So I knew that they were onto that, and then she gave me some names of people that would know about that stuff, because sometimes I had been to a counsellor and it was terrible. It was as if they didn't really even know. I didn't actually say I was being in this terrible relationship, and they didn't get onto it. I was hoping they would. So safety was about them really knowing. I knew I could trust them because they knew a lot about domestic violence, and also safety around confidentiality, that they're not going to contact your husband or ex about it, and that the counsellor didn't. She actually said to me that she didn't have to hear the details of what had happened, and that even though I wanted to tell her, but I kind of felt relieved, because sometimes you feel like you have to kind of go through everything to get through it, but that's actually not the case at all. You go through it in your mind all the time anyway, and having to tell someone else is even worse. and you do it in your time, you know. But she actually said I didn't even have to tell her the details. I had to tell the details to the police, and that was enough.
And that sense of relief brought you a slight sense of safety.
Huge
as well.
safety, yeah. And, you know, knowing that he didn't know where I lived, and that they wouldn't be contacting him, all that stuff, and that they knew what the police could do or couldn't do, so they had some legal knowledge, that gave me a sense of safety. Sometimes I didn't even know what they knew, but they were able to tell me, and so then I had that expectation that any other professional should know that.
So there are a number of dimensions of what safety has meant to you at different times.
Yeah. And I think also I remember the counsellor kind of saying if I felt like I was, you know, they use this word triggered sometimes, that, you know, not that that's really happened, I don't think, but at least she told me, because then it worried me that she'd talk about stuff that would take me back, and she wasn't doing that, but she just said if ever I felt odd or, you know, if the question was too much, I didn't have to answer it, and that, you know.
So had your back.
Yeah, and it gave me a sense of control in the interview, you know, rather than being told what to do, that I'd be asked about it all the time. Yeah, those sorts of things.
So you've explained to me that there were times when you wanted to talk about the detail of your experiences, but you were fearful about your safety. And also you've said sometimes that you felt that it was really difficult even to raise the fact that you actually really missed parts of the relationship. What happened during, you know, the course of some of your counselling where you felt that you could actually talk about how you were feeling in some of that detail?
Yeah, well, there was no way to start with that I'd ever say that I missed. And I didn't really miss. Well, there were aspects of his company that I missed, I suppose, and because I'd had the experience of a counsellor kind of, you know, they'd say the right things, but you knew that they were looking down their nose because you'd gone back. Because I went back to him a couple of times, and the last counsellor I had actually raised that as being really, you know, quite common, and not only just for the company or material things, but just that sense of loss, you know, and that she was really onto it, that, you know, you, even though you absolutely hate what's happened, and you know, you've still got kids missing their dad, and you know, you don't have that happy family thing anymore, and it's just too hard to stay away, and so it was really good that she raised that again, and that enabled me to start talking about how I really grieved missing having that family unit, and you know, looking out the window and seeing, I know they weren't all happy, but just feeling a lot of grief for what could have been, and also at the same time the years that I'd put up with shit, and I could have been in a, you know, maybe not another relationship, but just doing other things. You know, we might have had another, you know, I just decided I wasn't going to have any more kids, and that's a huge loss. Now I'm too old, and
you had a sense about what your life could be.
Yeah, that's right, you know, and to have that time to talk about grieving what could have been, and not letting the shame stop you from doing that, because I think, some counselling, you just feel so ashamed of having to admit that you went back or that you miss him, or you know, because the counsellor might just give that impression that they're anti him and pro you, and that's not really going to help.
And you've come in today to have a chat with me. You've brought me in a beautiful bunch of flowers. Thank you. They're beautiful. Gardens, flowers, they're something special to you, aren't they?
Yeah, they've been a bit of a lifeline, really, because I think, it was something that I was sort of almost criticised for because, it was messing up the house or bringing stuff into the house, and, it sort of took me away from what I really loved or what was important to me. And so one of the things I kind of did was make sure I sort of started a garden the first time I moved into somewhere. And that kind of really, it was sort of like getting my life back.
Gathering flowers are important to you because you told me your daughter's name is Poppy.
Oh yeah, that's one of the reasons. Yeah, that was a bit of a fight actually on what we were going to call her, but but yeah, that was really important to have that as a sort of a bit of a sign of my connection to nature and flowers and the natural world, which became something different between us. So that's really been important to recapture. It was sort of like getting my life back, it's also good to sometimes connect a little bit with other women that understand. Really.
And connecting up with friends and other people who perhaps share some of those interests and things that are important to you.
Yeah, I mean, there have been, of course, a few friends that have stuck with me through all of this, and they've been tremendously important. But, we've moved area, and so the kids are in a different school, and so, I'm letting or sort of forcing myself a bit to get out there a bit more and which takes a lot of courage and guts and stuff, but I know that it's really important, because that's how I see myself, more as a social person, that's someone that has to be on their own. So those things are incredibly important because that's how you sort of see yourself through the eyes of other people too.
So Karen, you said to me something about getting back to your roots now. Is there something else that you're comfortable talking about that can explain to me what getting back to your roots looks like?
Oh, I suppose, what comes to mind mainly is, I was a country girl really, and moved to the city because of studies and stuff, and I just decided that that was the place I felt most comfortable. So I've moved back to sort of, not the exact area I came from, but just to a place where, that sense of community is really easy. It's much harder in the city. And it's been really, really worth it, like I felt more comfortable there and just connected more to kind of my class and my people and, and it's great for the kids. They're part of a, smaller, less busy kind of lifestyle. And luckily, I've been able to get a part-time job in the area that I studied in, which was just a miracle, but, that's really helped too.
Karen, thank you so much for catching up with me.